My name is Shane McIntyre with Elevarus, and today we're going to talk about TikTok ads, how to scale your TikTok ads, particularly if anyone is focusing on lead generation as a primary goal. We're an agency, so we're going to actually show you some of the strategies that we use both for ourselves and for our clients. But we're actually going to show an example using a webinar campaign to get potential customers, our ideal customers, to register for a webinar. We had over 400, almost 500 people register in just a few days. TikTok accounted for a good portion of those leads that came in. So we're actually going to chunk it down. We're going to switch over to TikTok right now, kind of zoom out, show you how this campaign is structured, and then start to chunk down some of the tips and tricks on how we run paid traffic on TikTok. So the very first thing you're going to notice, we spent about $2,000 on TikTok. We generated over 169 leads, came in from the platform, and our cost per lead was about $11.96. And just to kind of give you guys an idea, this is not a lead form inside of TikTok. We are driving this traffic to a landing page and getting a couple questions up front to have a little bit of a higher barrier to entry. And the theory is to have a little bit of a higher quality lead. So we'll work backwards. I'm going to show you what the actual landing page looks like so you can kind of see what the flow was, and then we'll kind of work backwards in terms of the offer, creative, copy, and how we architected the campaign. So basically, we're asking a few questions. We've got our headline up at the top. This webinar was basically to push the pain point of why you have to stop buying leads with some of the changes that are happening, both with the regulatory environments and FCC and privacy laws, but also just it's a bad customer experience. And then just going into solution, how to build and scale your own lead generation machine. And we talk about, just like we're talking about here, some of you might even be watching this video from a slide deck that we shared on the webinar, but we're going to talk about Facebook ads and TikTok ads and all the different ways to build your first party channels. But on the landing page, it's super simple. There's nothing else to do on the landing page but to take the action that we want you to take, which is to register now. We build some trust and authority. We include, that we're Yelp partners, HubSpot partners, Google partners, reviews, previous clients. But basically everything is designed to bring them to the landing page. You'll also notice that we have UTM strings up at the top. This is getting posted into our CRM, and that CRM is HubSpot. So that way we have some way to report on what ad converted better, which ad group or ad set did better, which campaign, was it Google, Facebook, TikTok, whatever the case may be. So couple things here, though, to kind of zoom out a little bit on how we architected the campaign. You'll notice that we have one campaign, which is the webinar campaign. We set a lifetime budget on this campaign because we had a start date and an end date on the campaign. And those lifetime budgets sit within the ad group itself. So if we click on edit, and I'll show you how we have this structured, we have a $1,500 lifetime budget. And the difference between, for those that may not know, the difference between lifetime and daily budgets is daily budget means that if we say spend $100 per day on average, especially with Facebook, it's usually exact. TikTok is pretty close as well. It's going to spend $100 per day. If we set up a lifetime budget of 2 weeks and we say, hey, we want you to spend $3,000 over a lifetime of this campaign, the algorithm is going to try to figure out what the best way to spend that money is. Some days it could be 300, some days it could be 100. So it really just depends on what the goals of the campaign are. If it's an event, if it's a specific promotion, if it's something that's not going to be evergreen, that has an end date, then you're definitely going to probably want to do the lifetime campaign. If it's going to be something that's going to be ongoing, then you can do daily budgets. With TikTok, you can also day part run campaigns on specific days and hours. But we find that, especially for lead generation with Facebook and TikTok, it's better just to run it, let it run, let the algorithm determine the best time to show that ad to. And then as a function of your sales process, obviously you want to be following up with those leads as quickly as you possibly can. So both of these are structured with lifetime budgets of $1,500 a piece. But you'll notice I've got two different ad groups that we're testing. And we're testing both a broad targeting strategy and some level or some interest level targeting on this second ad group. So we'll look at this guy here. And for the broad targeting, we do have some demographics that we go after because we're usually working with larger companies, decision makers, business owners. We typically see that as 35 plus in terms of the age group. There's no difference between female or male as far as gender is concerned. We typically go after higher spending amounts, but it's basically broad outside of some basic demographics, some geographics in terms of geo-targeting that we're only looking within the United States, which is our market. That's pretty much it as far as targeting is concerned. Now, TikTok has gotten really intelligent in who it serves ads to. So it's not just looking at, hey, serve these ads to all these people. It's actually looking at what is in your ad copy, what's in your video, what's on your landing page, and also using those signals as well as your conversions to help kind of inform the platform of who to show the ad to. Then the second ad group that we're running here, we're actually testing same demographics, same geolocation. The only difference in this is we do have some interests related to digital marketing that we're running within this ad group. And it's also worth noting that we have the exact same ad copy running in both ad groups. So everything's the same. The only difference is the targeting. Now, what's curious about this, which is important to kind of note, is you'll see here that our cost per lead is more or less the same. So we'll scroll over here. You'll see our cost per result. For us, a result is a form fill, is more or less the same for the broad targeting as it is for the interest level targeting. There is some variance. We're at $12.55 on broad, $11.52 on targeted, but not really enough to have statistical significance. Conversion rate, 28 versus 30%. It's definitely high converting traffic. And I haven't looked, but if we look at a 7-day trend, maybe we'll see some outliners there. And see, this is the curious thing. On a 7-day view, our cost per lead is actually lower on the broad targeting as opposed to the interest level targeting, but they're still pretty close. I don't really see a big enough difference to say one's performing better than the other one. Now, the other side of this equation, which is why it's so important to have the foundation set up here, is what actually happens once that lead comes in. And that's why we have UTM tracking set up on all of our ads, on all of our ad groups. And that's why we push that back to our CRM. So 2 months, 3 months from now, when we run a report, we'll say, hey, out of the 100 and something leads that came in from TikTok, 15 of them turned into opportunities. Was there any statistical significance between opportunities that came from broad targeting versus opportunities that came from interest level targeting? And then at scale, you can even optimize for that. You can kind of tell TikTok, hey, I want to not just optimize for a lead, but I want to optimize for opportunities. So high level, that's kind of how we have the campaign structured. Now, as far as ads and creative, which I'll talk about here in a second, TikTok and Facebook these days are very, very, how should I say, they want to see a lot of different types of creative. And it's really letting the algorithm figure out who to serve the right ad to at the right place at the right time. So you want to have different types of creative all nested within that ad set. And that's what we did here. So you'll see here, we have a bunch of different types of creatives, and we'll kind of open up the hood here. We'll show you guys over the last 30 days what creative performed the best. So we're going to sort by results. And this is also true on Facebook. We noticed that this pretty much performed identical on both platforms. This was an ad that took us maybe 15 minutes to record. It's literally me pointing a finger at a landing page describing what the offer is. We've got some captions on it, and that's pretty much it. And believe it or not, this UGC kind of finger pointing style ad performed the best. But in general, the UGC style ads or user generated content just seems to perform very well on TikTok. It could be as simple as, if you're the founder, just looking at a camera. It could be a video format like this. It could just be you walking the dog, talking about your product or service, but you don't want to have overly produced content. It just seems to be what's working on the TikTok platform. So we do have a bunch of different variations of ads. We got a couple UGC style ads, but that one seemed to work the best across both ad sets. If we actually go here, we can look at how the ads performed across both ad sets. And if we scroll over to the right, you'll see this here, that both ad sets, the UGC style ads, seem to perform the best. Some of our finger pointing ad, that is to say, seem to perform the best, and then some of the UGC style ads. But all of them were pretty consistent in terms of cost per lead. There's a couple outliners to that equation, but there just wasn't enough conversions to where that we can get statistical significance to really make a judgment call if this one was any worse than this one or better. There's just not enough statistical significance there. And that's important too. That whole word statistical significance, when you're talking about lead generation, you're talking about paid advertising and paid campaigns, it is important, right? Because you may have 3 conversions from an ad that had, half of the CPA as your other ads, but is it really safe to say that there was enough there that it was going to make a meaningful difference at scale, right? You may get 10 conversions and find that, those averages start to come closer to your other campaigns, or might be higher or might be lower. So you want to make sure you get somewhat close to some sort of statistical significance when you're looking at what levers to pull. And that also brings up a conversation about budget. To some people, $3,000 may not seem like a lot of budget. To other people, it may seem like a lot of budget. And some of it also depends on the vertical that you're in. But you have to, as a business, think about, what is your cost of acquisition, right? What are you willing to pay to acquire a customer, acquire a client? For most industries, it usually is 10 to 20% of gross revenue. Could be different depending on your vertical. Some are a lot lower, some can be higher. As a general rule, 10 to 20% of gross revenue is usually a good goal for, a customer acquisition cost. And return on ad spend, generally speaking, you can kind of work those numbers backwards. If you can get somewhere between 4 or 5x return on ad spend, you're doing pretty good. Obviously, if you can increase those margins over time, you're doing much better. And then the other metric that you really want to look at a high level is, what is your total return on ad spend, and not just on one platform, because that's the tricky thing. Is, especially with TikTok, we may get a lot of clicks. We may get people that don't convert. In this case, we've had a pretty high conversion rate. But what about the other 70% that didn't convert? Well, they're also, if you build this right, they're going to be remarketed on Facebook. They're going to be remarketed on Google. They may actually come down a different conversion path from a different ad, or they may not even come down any type of measurable or attributable conversion path. They just may remember my name, Shane McIntyre at Elevarus, and 2 months later go on Google, do a search for us, and say, hey, I remember you sharing this great video about TikTok and advertising. It was really simple to understand. You shared a lot of secrets with us, and we'd like to hire you as an agency. Now, you're never going to be able to see that on a report and say, well, that 100% came from TikTok, but TikTok played a role in that conversion path. And that's why it's important to kind of look at things at a high level in terms of total marketing dollars spent and what is your total, lift or increase in revenue on a long enough timeline. And usually, 1 or 2 weeks isn't a long enough timeline. A couple months usually is not a long enough timeline, especially in the lead generation business where there's a sales component. Now, if you have an e-commerce store, if you have an e-commerce site, if the only gateway between you and the customer is a credit card or a purchase, it's really easy to attribute sales because you bring people to a Shopify store, they check out with a credit card, and instantly you know whether or not that's a sale or not. In the lead generation world, or anything that has to do with professional services or solar, mortgage, real estate, construction, anything that doesn't have an e-com credit card component to it, that sales pipeline is going to look a lot longer. So, could be 3 weeks, could be 3 months. There's some industries that have, 1 or 2 years of pipeline from the time that customer engages with the ad to the time that customer converts to a customer. So it's important to kind of look at things on the scale of whatever your sales pipeline is in terms of your paid traffic and particularly in terms of TikTok ads. So you'll see here, though, that we've got multiple variations of ads, multiple ad copies, but you'll see kind of that we're running just a very simple structure all in all, right? We have a campaign, we have 2 different ad sets that we're testing, and then we're testing a couple different types of creative. But this is really important. You're going to notice here that we have 2 different types of ads. You'll see Spark ads and you'll see identity ads. And I'm going to chunk down the difference between the 2. So when we go to create an ad, you're going to have the option of whether or not you want to deliver a Spark ad or you want to use a custom identity. And I'm going to explain the difference between the 2. So what a Spark ad allows you to do, it allows you to take a post that might be on your existing TikTok profile or TikTok page and promote that post as a paid ad and drive it towards whatever conversion goal that you want to drive. So this is an example of a Spark ad. It's connected to my TikTok. I can select which post I want to promote. I'm just going to select this one up here. And then from there, I can create, it's going to pull whatever text is on the ad. I can give it a URL, create some UTM strings, and that is basically the ad. Now, the advantage to Spark ads is it really helps with engagement on your own TikTok pages because it's using that actual post as the ad. So any likes and comments will show on that post. It definitely helps with engagement. The other option you can do is just use a custom identity. You don't necessarily have to have a TikTok page. You can create a custom identity, upload a logo, and then you can literally just upload a video, attach it here, and it doesn't need to run from the context of an actual page. It's good to test both. We've seen identity ads work better than Spark ads, and we've seen Spark ads work better than identity ads. It's good to test both and split test both. And you'll see here in our ad account, that's exactly what we do. Like if we look at the ads and we look at which ones converted the best. So we'll go up here and we'll actually look at the lifetime of this campaign. It's pretty close for this campaign in terms of cost per lead. This identity ad did a little bit better in terms of cost. At $8 a form fill, it generated 12 leads. This finger pointing ad, let's see if it was also an identity ad. So this one seemed to perform a little bit better for that particular ad group. But I always recommend test both. You may find identity works better than Spark, but Spark does have some advantages in terms that it does help with engagement on the profile. And that's really it. The other big things we recommend is definitely make sure you have your conversion tracking set up. That's for a different video entirely, but make sure you work with your developers, you work with your agency, you work with whoever's managing the account. Make sure you've got all the conversion pixels firing, you're tracking offline conversions, you're feeding that data back to TikTok, and you have good conversion tracking, because at the end of the day, that's how the algorithm optimizes. The other thing that's important on TikTok, and I'll go here and kind of show the process of when you create an ad, because I think it is important, is TikTok is really good at doing whatever you tell it to do. So if you tell it, hey, my objective is reach, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a ton of reach, but that doesn't necessarily translate to leads, right? If you tell it, hey, I want traffic, you're going to get a ton of clicks, but that also doesn't necessarily translate to leads. If you're trying to run a submit form from your own website, which is the example that I'm showing in this video, you're going to want to use website conversions. If you're going to use a native TikTok lead generation form, you're going to use lead generation and build out that form. We've tested both. We think the TikTok lead forms actually perform pretty well. But if you want to have a little bit of a higher barrier to entry, maybe a little bit of a higher qualified lead, sometimes it's better to just drive them to a landing page and, and put a little bit of tension or barrier between your prospect and your form fill. So that's pretty much it for the overview of what we use within our agency, some of the best practices that we use for TikTok and paid traffic. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can follow me on all the socials. My name is Shane McIntyre. You can also reach us at elevarus.com, ELEVARUS.com. That's elevarus.com. Keep working on scaling those ad platforms. Like and follow us, and let's grow.